Let's go.
Well, thanks Team 161 for having us. It's good to be co-investors in Gone. If I'm sweating up here, it's not because I'm nervous, it's because I didn't look at the forecast when I ordered the black pullover for today, and Yash made me represent Gone. And so, thank you, Yash.
Yeah. Tank tops next time, please. Tank tops.
Yeah, exactly. But super excited to do this. Like you said, one of the founders of Fuse, we started it 3 weeks before we were told to go home because of the pandemic in 2020. We invest in early AI companies. I know I'm the appetizer, he's the entree today, so I'll be brief, but we are super proud to be the first investors in Yash and Nick in Gone.com. And seeing how fast they've started to grow the company, it's been super, super fun, and a little bit of tuition in terms of them building more of a consumer-oriented company to an enterprise software guy. So it's been a lot of fun. So thank you, first of all, to both Yash and Nick for allowing the Fuse team to be along for the ride.
Thanks for believing in our craziness.
Well, it certainly is a little bit of that. But you are obviously one of the most celebrated founders here in town, but let's rewind the clock a little bit. Who is Nick Huzar pre-OfferUp days? What gave you the drive to be an entrepreneur, to start companies? Tell the audience a little bit more under the hood about yourself and your upbringing.
Maybe a show of hands. How many people in here are trying to build a company, like early startup folks? Okay, a number of folks. Okay, I hope you're ready for a lot of pain. Anyhow, so I started my first company 6 months out of school. I was 22, and then I started another one, ultimately called Connects, and nobody knows what it was. But this was pre-Friendster, and I know there's a lot of young people in here, they probably have no idea what Friendster was. They don't know the second company came after that, which was MySpace, but they definitely know Facebook. And so, I think in building that company, I learned a lot of painful lessons of kind of finding the right partners, the right team, right people, right time. But that was definitely a challenging thing I had to do many, many, many years ago. But for me, I think there's a lot of problems. I'm an optimist. I think there's a lot of problems in this world worth solving. I only have so many hours in a day, so you can't do all of them. But I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity for different things, and that's part of, I like the Legos, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so how old were you when you started that company?
26, 27 maybe.
And coming out of school, did you know you wanted to be a founder, an entrepreneur your entire career?
So I don't know, for many of you that raised your hands, part of my own personal challenge is I don't like people telling me what to do. I don't know, I just felt like my skills were underutilized in big companies. I felt like I went to my job and I could do it with my pinky. I felt like I could do way more than my boss and my boss's boss, and so that might have been a me problem, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs feel the same, right? It's like I can do way more in a day and I'm just gonna go out on my own. So I think at a pretty young age, I did burn the boats and I said, I will never work for anyone again. And that was 27, now I'm 48 years old and I haven't worked for anyone since. So for better or for worse, I kind of burned the boats, I think a long time ago.
And so going back to the personal front, how long have you been married now?
18 years.
18 years.
Yep.
And so she's been along for the ride for most of your entrepreneurial journeys.
Oh, yeah.
How important is that?
I think that's everything. So anyone that's married going on the journey, a few bits of advice. Share everything. Make sure they know what you're going through because it is a lonely journey. And I think if your partner's not there with you, that makes life real tough. So make sure you pick the right partner because it's not for everyone. My wife actually wants to write a book called Being Married to a CEO, which I think would be pretty good. Be pretty therapeutic at least. But yeah, I think that's a super important part. I think if I wasn't married to my wife, I wouldn't be able to do a lot of what I like to do every day.
All right, I'd read that book. All right, still pre-OfferUp days. What was the venture community like when you were starting Connects in your first two companies?
Oh, man. So, keep in mind, back when we were starting Connects, there was no Friendster. There was no, this was back when dating sites was like, oh my God, he's online dating. You don't want to do that. This is kind of the era that we were in, right? Now, today, if I was single, I'd have spreadsheets. I'd have the whole, it would be a different game, right? But I think back then, it was a very different world because the internet was, quite honestly, fairly new. So there was probably not a lot of capital flowing around in general, and it was pretty hard to get things kind of moving. But we scratched and clawed. I think with that Connects in particular, we raised money from 56 angels. We never raised venture dollars, and quite honestly, it wasn't really, we didn't have the traction to be, it didn't warrant it, is my point. Yeah. So that was a learning lesson from that one.
Yeah, interesting. Your comment's really funny because I met someone the other day that said, yeah, we met the old-fashioned way, it was in a bar.
Yeah.
And today that's kind of like almost taboo.
Somebody may be getting married in here tonight.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's fast forward to the OfferUp days. I think you started the company in 2011 with RN?
That sounds right, yeah.
Sounds right, so 14 years ago.
Yeah.
What was the insight to get going?
So the insight for me at the time, if anyone remembers pre-mobile phones, you used to actually have to take a photo of something and upload it to your computer to the internet. It took like 15 minutes. And so my basic insight was I had a room full of stuff, and I didn't want to do that because I'm lazy. And I just thought, why can't I just take a picture from my phone? Which seems like, well, duh. But back then, nobody was doing that. And so that was, I kind of tend to lean in on opportunities and ask the questions why. Like, why can't we do something differently? Is this really a big shift? And mobile phones were definitely a big shift at the time because they're all in our pockets. If we want to offer up anything, I want to offer up this. I want to offer maybe Kellen, whatever. I could just take a photo now and do it. So that was kind of the insight that we believed that everyone would have smartphones, the phones would get better, and we would take full advantage of that. And so today we've been installed 150 million times. Like half of America is installed OfferUp at this point. But we were writing code before there was an Android phone. So it took, for anyone that's starting something new and cutting edge, it took a lot of belief and a lot of just persistence for many, many years because not everyone had a smartphone. In fact, like the first iOS developer we had to talk to his parents because he was a high schooler to come work for us. And like that's just kind of where we were as an industry. And luckily we persisted for many years, and then we raised some more capital and kind of scaled. But we were writing code before there was an Android phone, and that's kind of that's the hard part when you kind of see the future before the market's there.
So did you just put a target right on Craigslist? Which is how I got my first apartment in San Francisco, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, most of us have engaged in that plan. I always say friends don't let friends use Craigslist. But that's like innovate or die. Like, I think Craigslist now finally has an app, but that only launched a few years ago. And so, I think there's so much more you can do with a mobile phone, especially in the space we were playing, that we felt like that could leverage the maps and chat and photos, and like that just made the whole experience a lot better.
100%. So 2011, you start the company. I was looking at, the public cap table the other day. I don't think there's any Seattle VCs.
No.
A few angels, no VCs.
Yeah.
How do we screw that up?
Well, I mean, I think in fairness, Seattle, to be clear, I think has a lot of amazing talent and a lot of amazing investors. What you don't see a lot in Seattle is a lot of consumer companies. Yeah. And so I think just part of it's the DNA. Like, we've got Microsoft here and other things like that, and I think that's all fine. But I think I had a hard time raising capital in Seattle. At the time, there just wasn't a lot of opportunities. Compared to the Bay Area, there's a lot of other companies that are doing more consumer-focused companies. So I got on a lot of airplanes, unfortunately, and ended up getting it done that way. And we had a really good, I think, angel network that was supportive here too. But I think that was honestly part of a challenge for what we were doing. I think if you're doing enterprise things, you're doing SaaS companies, you're doing things that are more corporate, I think Seattle is like a bullseye for that. But putting OfferUp aside, like think of how many huge consumer companies you've seen around Seattle. There's just not very many.
Yeah, no, 100%. One of my favorite things about working with Nick is he can take complicated topics and synthesize them into the most obvious way to say it, and say it with absolute conviction, as if he could say, hey, yeah, we're going to the moon today, and you'd be like, hey, yeah, definitely, I'm joining you.
Okay.
And so it's a little surprising, by the way, that there's no VCs, because even though it's a consumerish company, I remember this walk I went with Amit Mittal, I think was an angel investor, right?
Amit?
Amit Mittal,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And he was telling me, I was like, okay, you're an OfferUp. How'd you get into that deal? That company fascinates me. And he said, I met with Nick, and I said, give me the pitch. He said, I'm going to do Craigslist, but better.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Craigslist, but better, 10 times better. And he said, you said that 15 times. He's like, okay, I'm cutting you a check, I guess.
Yeah. And now he's my new business partner and another thing I'm working on. So
yeah, exactly.
Funny how that works.
And so you've raised with some of the best VCs, in the world. Jeff Jordan, I believe, is on your board. Yep. Describe your arc as a founder. What you learned, what you had to learn, what you were forced to learn. how you've changed as an operator pre-Juicer, pre-Gone.
I think the hard part, if anyone's starting their companies for the first time, is you have to be in the mode of shedding yourself constantly. So wherever you think you are as a human, in 24 months from now, you better not be that person. Because if you want your company to succeed, you have to be very focused on yourself and how you are going to change. And I think that's very hard, because you have to evolve constantly. Because who you are at 10 people versus 300 people is very different. And so I think that has been one that I think I was pretty focused on all the time. I was very mindful of, am I spending my time in the right way? Am I who I need to be? Because if I don't change, my company won't exist. And I think I was pretty mindful of that. I think the other thing that becomes kind of maybe not as optimistic of saying is that you become kind of hardened in that journey. And it's difficult when you work with really important people in your life and you have to let them go and things like, people that start may not make it through that, and you just have to navigate that. So you go from doing and like literally designing logos and every little thing to just being kind of an orchestrator of a concert. Like your job, I always say as a CEO, your job is to set the vision, to make sure you hire and fire the right people on your leadership team, and to not run out of money. At the end of the day, as a CEO, that's your top job. And then there's 1,000 other things you could go do, and you just have to prioritize, what's the most important at the time.
Yeah. What was your method of soliciting help and input, whether it's from your board or CEO coaches or advisors? Like, how early in that journey did you start to realize that was valuable?
So I think, here's the thing I also think anyone starting companies, if you go to your board and your advisors and ask for all their input and take all their advice and do it, you've got a business. They contradict each other all the time. So if you think like, I'm gonna talk to all these smart people, they're gonna tell me what to do. I think you need to listen to them and take their advice. And sometimes there's a theme there, and you should listen to that. But if you act on all of it, you got a business. I told my board members that in private sessions sometime. I'm like, you just kind of contradicted you, and you contradicted you. So like, you guys we're not in consensus on where we're going. And so I think your job as an operator running the company is to take all those inputs, but then you have to come up with your own decision and make sure everyone's clear on why you're doing what you're doing. And so soliciting that feedback, I did a tour, I was very proactive when Andres invested. I said, I want to leverage their network. I want to talk to the best CEOs I can find. I'm going to take 2 weeks. I'm going to go down the valley and I meet with everyone, Jerry Yang and John Donahoe and Mark Andreessen. And I did that, and I just sat there and I told him, like, here's what I'm focused on. Here's what I'm worried about. What do you think? And so I think be proactive and do that, because you'll learn a ton. And so spend the time and do that. Yeah.
Well, you're touching an interesting point, because we're all very provincial here and prideful about the Pacific Northwest. It's like the Boston teams versus the New York teams. Like, we want to beat San Francisco, right? Like, it's just in our blood. And so describe the value and how important it is to stay plugged into the Bay Area, whether it be investors, founders, the innovation that's happening there, so you can outcompete, play chess, et cetera.
So I'm born and raised in Seattle. I love Seattle. I think if Seattle and New York came together, we'd have another Silicon Valley. I think Seattle's biggest challenge is we just need way more early stage risk capital. And I think you talk to the venture folks in this room, and I'm sure they'll agree. They're like, hey, we just need more of it. Because it's always easy when a company is moving and has all the right metrics up and to the right to say, I'm just going to add water to this. It's much harder to take a risk early on where, like, you got a crazy idea or you got very little traction, and like that is challenging. Yeah. And so, like, unfortunately, it's just a game of numbers. Like, you look at Silicon Valley with things like Y Combinator and things. I mean, there's $200 million every year going to Y Combinator. Like, how do you compete with that? Like, and we don't need to. We need to do what Seattle does well. But I think of what, how do you leverage both? I'd say is, you should raise capital here when you can, and you can raise capital there when you can. But I think we need more people investing in the earliest stages of ideas, knowing that it's risky. I think that's what transforms Seattle, honestly.
Yeah. So back to where you're at in the next chapter of your journey. You're the co-founder of 2 companies, Juicer and Gone. Yeah. Before we go to the Gone, let's talk about Juicer. What was the insight to start Juicer?
So very similar. So who drives an EV in here in the room? Okay, a handful. Yeah. So roughly in King County, about 10% of people drive EVs. And to be clear, we're in the epicenter of EVs, like here, San Francisco, LA. So 10% may seem like a small number. Just, again, think of this as early days of OfferUp, and it's like, we got smartphones. Okay, so we're there. Where are we in 5 years? I believe in my lifetime, none of you will drive a gas-powered car ever again. And it has nothing to do with sustainability. It has everything to do with the price So all of us in 10 years will drive $12,000 EVs that will be the most badass thing you've ever driven. Because the average EV has half the amount of parts as a gas-powered car has. And all of us will benefit from that, and that is all going to happen. I'm 100% sure of this. But we're in the early days, right? It's like me trying to convince people that, we're all gonna have smartphones. And so I think that is what is gonna happen with electric vehicles. And so for me, like I said, you mentioned one of my early investors in OfferUp. We're having lunch one day, and I'm like, this space just seems broken. And so that's kind of the opportunity I see in the charging space. We don't need 5 times, we need like 100 times the amount of chargers. Like technically, all of us have electricity at our house. Why aren't we all charging cars everywhere today, right? So I think that will happen over time, but the cost needs to come down considerably and reliability needs to come up, and that's a lot of what we're focused on, Juicer. We're more like Comcast Cable. We don't just sell a piece of charging hardware. That's not what we do. But I think the space is gonna be very different in the next 5 years. I think a lot of these early movers are gonna go away. Many of them are like ex-oil guys. So you see a lot, what you see in the EV charging space is everyone trying to create gas stations. Does anyone want to sit for 30 minutes and charge their car out in the wild? Hell no. You just want to charge where your car is parked. Charge in your apartment, charge when you're sitting here, charge somewhere. You don't want to sit there for an extra, 6 times the amount of time it takes you to put gas in your car. So I think there's a very broken space. Hopefully we're successful, but it's still very early days there.
And now over to Gon, your promised plug, Yash. I'm just kidding, I'm kidding.
We haven't used the word AI yet. Wait, AI, just to see if anyone's drinking.
Well, no, I was going to get to the bigger word here shortly.
Okay, there we go.
But,
okay.
Over to Gon. I remember when we got connected and you two were working on this kind of in the background.
Yeah.
But describe the inspiration for Gon, especially as it relates to the OfferUp gap you saw.
Yeah, so I think the idea with OfferUp is you can just take a photo and have, hopefully streamline a process of selling something. The idea with Gone is the easy button to literally clear out a massive space. So, how many people can't park in their garage in this room? Like, be honest, how you can't park in your garage is full of stuff, yeah. Okay. 1/4 of US households can't park in their garage because it's full of stuff. Businesses are a perfect opportunity. Like Kellen wanted to clear out Fuse, wanted to clear out a WeWork. What is the easy button to get that stuff gone? There isn't one. The option is you pay a junk service $1,000, they show up with the trunk, and it usually ends up mostly in landfill. And so, at OfferUp, I always thought that I took some inspiration from Amazon because I think it's kind of a sad state where we live in the world today, that it's easier to get a package delivered to you from Amazon or from anywhere from around the world than it is down the street. In fact, in the next year, 200 million packages will be shipped around this earth in the next 12 months. And you're like, well, why can't we just do this locally? And so I think there's a unique opportunity to figure out how do you build out a network, AI-enabled network, to take an infinite supply, infinite demand, and make those connections. I think it's a really interesting opportunity. Part of it is AI-enabled. You fast forward a little bit further, I think autonomous vehicles, I think very soon we're just going to stick things in cars and they're going to leave our house, or vice versa. You're just going to refurnish your entire living room, and you're going to hit a button, and autonomous cars will bring them to you. And why do I think that? Because again, the cost of all of this is plummeting. The cost of batteries is plummeting. The cost of cars are plummeting. And I think as a result, that's what's going to start to happen in the next 5, 10 years.
And all jokes aside, I've had to move 3 times in the last couple of years. When we were moving out of San Francisco, we had to call 1-800-GOT-JUNK. They showed up for about 30 minutes, and it was an $1,800 bill, literally to just throw our couch away. So then we met Nick and Yash, and they were starting Gone.com, and we were actually renovating our own office space, and we were meeting with our architects, and we had a $25,000 or $35,000 budget line item on removing all of our old office furniture, which was actually all in really good shape. And we said, hey, by the way, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but we could actually get rid of this for free or cost plus, just pay cost us a couple $100. And they said, take that deal, please introduce me to the guys that are doing that because I will recommend this to all their clients. Yeah. And then similarly with our own house, we bought a house about 1.5 years ago, me and my wife did, and it's the easy button. Show up, take your stuff, gone in 15 minutes, don't have to get a U-Haul, don't have to call 1-800-GOT-JUNK. It is just gone and out of your hair, and boom, you move on. Yeah. So it's actually a beautiful service, very beautiful service.
True story, this was not a seed planted, so he ends up coming over to Juicer, the other startup I'm working on, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money to furnish it, so I end up going to Gone, I pull up a U-Haul, and down, like everything, the fridge, the microwave, the Herman Miller chairs, everything. So he shows up, he's like, I recognize those chairs. I'm like, I actually think they come from your office. So that's the whole, I mean, it's very serendipitous, but that's the idea behind that company.
You know, the one friction point we got to remove is not warehouse that and take it right from Fuse to your office now.
That's right. We've done a few of these, by the way. We've done a few where we've actually picked up and they never came back to our warehouse. They've actually gone right to the buyer. And that's the dream scenario. So early stage company, but again, I'm very passionate about circularity. I think over time, this will start to take shape more.
Yeah. Okay, so still fast forwarding to today, and I don't know.
How are we doing on time?
Yes.
No one. Okay, we'll keep going.
All right, keep going. All
2
right, 2 more
minutes. Oh, God.
All right, we could go up here for hours.
Okay.
So you probably have to unlearn a lot of lessons you learned building OfferUp, and that building a company is way different today.
Yeah.
But how do you think about that? Like,
Yeah.
what are you erasing from your kind of 2010s era, and how are you reinventing yourself as a founder and building a company?
So I actually I feel so lucky to be alive right now. Because when I came out of college, I had to convince people why they needed a database-driven website. Like, what's a database? Why don't and then I went through the mobile era, and now we are in this kind of AI, kind of autonomous era, and I am absolutely loving it because you just need way less people. Yeah. Like you can do so much with just a very small team, leveraging all the tools that are out there. Like our customer service team on the side of our charging box, we actually put our 1-800 number on the outside of it. And like, well, why would you do that? People are gonna call you. Well, one, our stuff doesn't break very often. When they do call, it's our AI that actually answers. I'm not building a customer service team. I'm building an AI team that's figuring that out. We had a guy pitch us last week on AI-enabled robots because we do some manufacturing locally. The robot sits there and watches what we do, learns, and they can basically, I'm talking soldering, I'm talking building chips and gluing things. The robot is actually able to figure those things out now, which is incredible to think about. Yeah. And so I'm just a kid in a candy store. I'll try anything. Anyone talking about some new model, something, I'm like, this is incredible, because I think you're gonna build amazing companies without having to, you're just gonna be a lot leaner, which means you can make decisions and scale faster.
So, final question, predictions. What does this market look like in 2030? Seattle is a venture ecosystem and an innovation ecosystem. Yeah. And what do we need to improve on? Like, what is the muscle that needs to get built here?
Yeah. So I'll put this in, as I think about the next 5 to 10 years, I put them in 2 different buckets. I'll talk macro and then Seattle. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of you are gonna have a lot more free time. And AI is gonna enable a lot of this. And well, here's what's gonna happen, I think. I think autonomous cars, and literally not even just, so what you see is like, why don't we have autonomous cars here? Because we have too many elements. We have hills and things like that. You see a lot of autonomous happening in dry, straight, places. Soon we will get them, but unfortunately we've got too many things like hills and water and crazy. We have terrible drivers here. If you're from California, they suck here. But anyhow, so I think that'll be a thing. So now this time that we've spent commuting, hopefully will be freed up. I think you'll move goods the same way. Maybe 5 years, 10 years, same thing. You're just gonna stick things in cars or vice versa. It's gonna happen. I think the same thing is gonna happen in your life when you think about scheduling things, when you're thinking about travel, or you're thinking about how much time do we spend calendaring and all that, that's all gonna go away. So I think there's a huge amount of just wasted time that will then be freed up, I think, as humans, that I think we'll take advantage of. And I think Seattle, like some of the folks speaking earlier had mentioned, I think we're in a great spot for that. I think we really understand that is so I'm very excited about that. People worry about job displacement. Somebody will create new jobs. Robots is another thing. Like I hate doing dishes. I hate doing laundry. That's gonna happen too. We're already there. We will all have robots coming around doing all that. That's all gonna happen in the next 5 to 10 years. So then you go, okay, what do I do with all my time? I don't know, better take up golf or something like that, I don't know. But I think those will be the impacts in society. I believe in AI and faster than any of us can imagine. I think that is happening so fast that will be so exciting. I think in terms of Seattle, like more is more. Like if I think of where Seattle is today versus even 10 years ago, we have way more startups. We have way more investors in this space. And my hope in the next 5 to 10 years, you just see even more diversity. Like selfishly, I'm more of a consumer guy, like consumer problems. I'd love to see more consumer investors here. I think that would be great. But I think we have all the right ingredients. We just need more people that can kind of reach out and bridge that gap at the earliest stages, because that's what Seattle really needs. And I'm preaching to the choir for a lot of investors that are here. I think they all know that. It's like, how do we do more of that?
Awesome. Thank you for doing this, man. Good to see you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.